The title of this presentation, which is focused on wellness, is Resilience for Personal and Professional Wellness. And you are in for a treat. This is a little different than what you might experience in most of your professional development online events. Presenter Dr. Chris Eyring is a local psychologist with a focus on mindfulness, especially for athletes. Her book, Mindfulness, has strategies that can help everybody, not just athletes, even those of us who are couch potatoes. And I have to tell you, I saw a little snippet of her book online and I ordered it yesterday. Sandy Salvo is the owner of Centered Connections, and Sandy is my Qigong instructor. Every Monday morning, I'm in Sandy's virtual Qigong class, and at the end of it, I am always energetic, at the same time relaxed, and there's a smile on my face. And before I met Sandy, I didn't even know what Qigong was. So Sandy and Chris, welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. Dr. Eyring is having a little issue with her video. She was going to start us off today. Chris, are you able to even take yourself off of mute? And would you like to start, or would you like me to start? And then we'll come back to you. I'll just begin by saying that we are so pleased to be here, and we understand that this whole topic of resilience, it is so important to all of us. We have to be resilient day in and day out, moment in and moment out. And so we're hoping to share with you a little bit of research and insight about how to be resilient, but also give you some experiences, meditation, as well as some Qigong practice. And we also want to leave time for you to speak within yourselves. The whole idea of this conference, right, is connecting. So we're going to give you a little time at the end of our presentation to have some time to think about your own resilience and your own resilience toolkit, if you will, with some of your colleagues. So just know that that will be coming at the end of our presentation. One of the most profound statements that I have ever heard in a presentation was at the university many years ago. Some of you might know Jon Kabat-Zinn, and he's a world-renowned teacher, writer, scholar, and so forth on mindfulness and meditation. And that day he said, our greatest healthcare system is our own body. Our greatest healthcare system is our own body. So just let that sink in a moment. You know, if you think of our own amazing bodies and all of the systems and the processes that go on moment to moment in our bodies without us even having to think of it. And then you think about all the money and frustration we pour into our healthcare decisions, our health insurance, and so on. And you think about comparing that perhaps to the amount of time we spend cultivating our own health and well-being. And sometimes those things just don't match up as well as they should, or we're maybe spending a little too much time on one and less on the other. So I guess as I just want to mention that years ago, when I first heard this concept about, my gosh, my own body is my best healthcare system, it really changed the way that I approached my work. At the time, I was a fitness and wellness director at the UW Sports Medicine Center. And it really changed the way that I approached classes. And it also got me drawn to this thing that Kathleen mentioned called Qigong. It's a form of mind-body practice that really helps you tune in to the resources in your own body. And I found myself in a 3-year certification, and I've been teaching ever since. How many of you are even familiar with Qigong or Tai Chi? I imagine almost all of you are familiar with yoga, yes? So as my teacher, Roger Yanka, would say, yoga originating in India and Qigong originating in China are just two sides of the same mountain. I want to read for you a quote that from my teacher, Roger Yanka, who wrote a book called The Healer Within. And it's about this concept of having this healing within ourselves. When we learn to heal ourselves by activating our own internal medicine, we will be able to increase our productivity, our vitality, and our well-being, 3 of our richest human assets, for free. So I love that thought. And as we take this time out of our busy schedules this morning to be together and to look at our own health and well-being, just keep in mind that you have all the resources you need. And if we're able to get back to slides, Tiffany, I'd love for you to go to the one that has the question, what is resilience? But in any event, we're going to take just a moment to think about some definitions of resilience. So one definition from the Institute of, the National Wellness Institute, excuse me, is that resilience is our inborn or innate capacity to meet stress head on and to transform stress into growth. And as Richie Davidson, for those of you that are local, our very own neuroscientist and researcher would say, resilience, excuse me, is the speed at which we recover from adversity. So one of the things that has happened with research that has, we all know, as women, we all know that we tend to have a set point, right, for our weight. It's like, oh, can I just get past this? Well, as it ends up, research has shown that we also have a set point for our ability to return to an emotional place after an adverse situation or so on has come. So that set point is someplace that we tend to return to. And some of us just return sort of at the bottom of this. If we can get the whole thing in there, we'll see there's sort of a continuum here. So at the bottom, some of us just tend to return to a point of distress, while others of us, excuse me, are coping, sometimes in healthy ways, sometimes in not so healthy ways, but we're coping and we're just getting by. And we're feeling like that's about all we can do right now. It's kind of like they talked about in marketing, right? Sometimes we just need to be getting by. But then other times there's people who can actually move beyond that, learn from the adversity, learn from the challenges in front of them, and move into resilience and perhaps even thriving, which is what is labeled as our feeling enlivened and full of potential. So it's sort of the difference between being or living in that survival mode and living in the creation mode, if you will. So as entrepreneurs, most of us, I think, would probably rather be living in the creation mode, but sometimes we have to sort of reset our set point. So for today, just simply ask yourself, where do I tend to land? Am I just settling? Would I want to change my set point if I could? And we'll give you time at this end of this session, as we said, to discuss this with each other and kind of talk about ways that maybe you could begin to reset your set point if you wanted to. So before I share some further research on resilience, I'd like to ask you to just sit back for a moment and even just close your eyes. Think about a situation where you recovered from something, like it was just a really hard time to get through. It was a difficult situation. Just bring it to mind and then bring to mind those things that helped you get through it. Like, who was there for you? Who did you lean on? What resources did you draw upon? Just bring it all to mind, because one of the essential keys of being resilient is to be able to recall those things that were helpful to us in the past and remind ourselves to use them again. So as I move into describing what's called the 5 C's of resilience from this research from the National Wellness Institute, I'd like you to just have in your own mind those things that have worked really well for you. Jot these 5 down. These are from the research, the 5 things that are really important in terms of your resilience toolkit, if you will. The first one is confidence. The second is compassion. The third is commitment. The fourth is community. And the fifth is centering. So again, as we think of each of these, what I'd like you to really do is just think about, what does each of these mean for me? what I'd like you to do is just look at a slide about confidence, and you can at least see most of it here. You'll see some words in a bubble. You'll see a young man here trying to go across a ropes course. But just, I'm going to give you in silence just some time to look at these words and images and jot down for yourself, what does being confident mean for me? And where has that served me well? How can I bring that into my work and into my personal life so that it becomes a part of my regular resilience? Our next C is compassion. So just looking at the words here, I guess we can't really see the images, but just looking at the words. Again, what's resonating for you in terms of this idea of bringing compassion into your life? How does that play into your ability to be resilient, to bounce back, to make the most of a difficult situation? So I'm just going to give you a few moments here to look at this and maybe jot down anything that's resonating with you, or other words or images that come to mind when you think of compassion. And then our third C of resilience is commitment. Hopefully we don't feel like this image too often. Think for yourself, what does commitment mean, and what does that look like for you in terms of your own resilience? You can see at least a few of the words there. And then the fourth one, community. For me, this is a huge one, community being those people that we stay connected with. So in this image about community, think of those groups that you maybe in your family community, your worship community, those people that are friends to you, your work community. How is the community around you important? How does it shore you up? How can you rely on your community and lean on them when you need them most? So just take a look at these and write down anything that resonates with you most. And then finally, centering. So here's a few words that others have thought of related to centering. That ability to just come back to yourself, to be really true to yourself. So just take a look at some of these words and phrases. Think about, what are some things that you do or have done in your life? Maybe it's a daily routine. Maybe it's something you just pull out of the hat when you really need it. But what do you do to bring yourself back to who you really are and who you know you are, to ground yourself, if you will? And at this point in the program, I was going to turn it over to Chris, and we'll just listen intently to Chris now on the phone.
One of the things I was going to talk with you about today as a small business owner, and the sense of like, since I often work with athletes and high performers with their mind and how to cope with stress and performance. So one of the things we often talk about is, instead of setting up just your daily schedule, have you ever considered setting up your mind? For a moment here, what I'd really like you to do on a piece of paper is draw 3 circles, consecutive circles, like a stop and go light, where the one on top would be red, the one in the middle would be yellow, the last one would be green. So there's 2 methods you can use if you choose to use this technique. So each morning, if you have something like this, I had a kid who's nine years old paint some stop and go symbols on a canvas. I have it in my office. So when I bring people in, I often ask, where would you say your mind is at today? What's your mindset today? And we look at, if it's in the red zone, why, and how do we move to yellow? And if we're in yellow, how do we get to green? So one of the things to remember is red is about being very critical or judgmental, looking at things that are really stressed in more of a negative narrative with yourself internally. And oftentimes we think, oh, we should think positive, but jumping from red to green is really tough. So we often talk about neutral, yellow. And so some of the famous athletes or performers that I work with use yellow as a sense of, how do I coach myself to a better spot? And one of the trainings I had The spot was given a numerical number. And bear with me, it makes sense. So if we had a perfect day, it would be a 10. We'd all be in green. So the challenge is, how do I have an 8 day? How do I set up my mind in such a way that I can walk in the door at the end of the day or walk in the office and have an 8 day? So understanding what an 8 day would mean to you would mean, how do I coach myself to get to that point? So on your steering wheel, sometimes it's helpful to have a note or on your desk. And the trainer I had challenged us to move from, he had us do a 2.7/8. And if you're having a 2.7 day, the idea would be to pause. Look at what I could do to move this to 8. That's setting up your mind instead of setting up your schedule. And the idea is that we actually have some management of that. And the more we manage that, sometimes the better our day goes. That's one of the things we talked about, Sandy and I, is actually setting up this talk with the concept of you have a lot more management of your mind than you think, and it influences your day a lot. So in addition to your daily schedule, remember to set up your mind. So we all have a self-narrative, and it's interesting because the military has done a lot of research on this. And they talk about 4 skills they teach people in high stress situations that they really need to get better at. The number one is the self-narrative. So we often go from anxiety or negative internally in our head, that voice, and they really work on helping performers do a lot more of getting out of judgment of good or bad and more into practical solution narrative. What do I do? And so your language of how you talk to yourself is very influential in how you feel. And from those 2 things, it affects what you do. So the more you can start with managing your self-narrative, your language, the more important it will be for helping you manage your stress. And the other 3 skills they talk about working with people in combat or high performance is visualization. How do you set up and look and see your day? 3 is small goals. That's your daily schedule. What would be a small goal success for me today? And the other one is breathing and having periodic checks, like morning, noon, before you leave work, just checking in, taking some deep breath, pausing, doing this check-in, where's my mind, and then recentering. And I think that's where Sandy and I were really going to work together on this whole concept of how do you recenter. So an activity that I really like, and I want to share it with you, it's using visualization and a little bit of imagination. So just pause for a moment and imagine some of the roles you play in your life. So perhaps one is a daughter, a mother, a worker, or you can imagine some of the things that stress you. So sort of create 5 bubbles in your mind. You can write them out if you want, of these roles and the things that might stress you. So I would put like understanding when the COVID is going to end, or I'm a daughter, or I'm a partner, or I'm a stepmom. So I would write those. And if you would, just for a moment, close your eyes. Imagine these bubbles above your head. They're all little bubbles of narratives you're talking about in your head. And you may not even be aware of how you switch back and forth with the bubbles. Using your imagination, what I'd really like you to do is take your hand and grab each bubble and place it in the center of your stomach. Place each bubble, like sort of grab them with your hand, daughter, mother, business owner, sister, worries, and imagine that you're grabbing them and putting all these pieces into your stomach. And they create a whole. And with your eyes closed, I want you in your mind say to these bubbles, rest. Just pause and rest for a moment. This is a little bit like defragmenting your computer. Sometimes we have way too many bubbles or screens open. So you're pulling them all in. And if you had to choose 1 or 2 that you would like to focus and pull out today that you think are really important for today, then take those 2 out and imagine those 2 above your head. In this way, what you've done is you sort of defragmented, slowed some of the talk maybe in your head or the bouncing from topic to topic. That's actually what causes anxiety and stress. We have too many windows open. Sometimes we don't even know we have windows open. But once you make a conscious effort, this is sort of coming back to the military research, how they say we need small goals and just a few. You're going to pull out one or two bubbles that are important. And those are going to be your focus. And the rest of them can literally rest for now. And write those two bubbles down. And then that becomes your focus. So as a business owner myself, I can tell you I have to do this a lot because I get pulled in so many different directions, and I'm constantly thinking, this is more important, this is more important. So I pause, take a moment to think about what really is important, and then I determine my actions from that. That's helped me a lot when I feel like I'm really frazzled or pulled. And I'm hoping that is a technique you might use for yourself.
I would like to introduce a practice, a mind-body practice called Qigong. Qigong, if you want to look it up. And it really means cultivating, playing with even, or working with your energy, your life force energy. So as I mentioned, just like yoga is a mind, body, and even spirit practice, so is Qigong. And it is a fun way to really do a meditation, but to get your body into it as well and to connect the mind and the body. So while seated meditation is a part of Qigong, what we're going to do today is just some very gentle movements. And if you're a little afraid, like, uh-oh, I left my jammy pants on, I didn't think I was going to be standing up, it's okay. We all like to sit around in our jammy pants some days, so it's okay. But I'd invite you to stand up at this point. Find a spot where you've just got a little arm room to join me. We're just going to do about 10 minutes of Qigong this morning. And so just find a space where you've got a little room. And I will say, if you could, put your view on speaker view. And then, there's Chris in person too. Put your view on speaker view and you'll be able to see my movements a little bigger, and then you'll see everyone else. So go ahead and stand up wherever you are. Just find a little space. I'm going to move my chair out of the way here. And please join me for just a little Qigong as a practice here. Get my screen a little better for you. So we're going to just start by doing something with our feet about shoulder width apart. Just doing something that's called ringing the bell or ringing the gong. So you just simply stand up and begin to rotate from the spine. Just let your arms swing. This is going to feel good anyway because we've been sitting now for over an hour and a half. So we all need a little stretch break here. Go ahead and just take some nice deep breaths. Ringing the gong is sometimes also referred to as the time when we call ourselves to be fully present. So just call yourself to be fully present right here with your own body and your own breath, just for the next few moments. In Qigong, we have what we call our 4 baskets of practice. Gentle movement is one of them. As I mentioned, meditation is part of it. Breath work is one of the baskets, so we'll be adding our breath into what we do. And then also another part of it is what we call tapping and self-massage. So now if you just let your hands come to stillness for a minute, I'm going to show you a little tapping technique called the 4 thumps. So just start very gently with your fingertips, maybe just 2 fingertips, right here on the cheekbones. Just do a little tapping, and as you do, breathe in through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Go ahead, do it with me. Breathe in, breathe out. Good. You'll be amazed at how good tapping feels. This is tying in with an ability to sort of get your energy centered and pull it down. Then go ahead and tap just below your shoulder blades. Take some nice deep breaths. This is where all of your meridians sort of come in and have a juncture point here. This is an important one. Then tapping right in the center of the chest. Take a nice deep breath here. Exhale. And then standing nice and tall, or if you decided to stay seated, go ahead and sit up nice and tall and just on the ribs, the side of the ribs. Do a little tapping here. And then take a hand up on the shoulder and just come down and across. This is just to sort of settle that tapping energy. Just slide your hand down and across, and then shake at the wrists. Maybe touch your toes. If you have been seated this whole time, go ahead and just sort of shake and stomp it out. Part of Qigong warm-ups is not only just getting the body flowing, but actually releasing anything you just kind of want to get rid of this morning so that you can be fully here. So we'll find our Qigong stance. This is also a Tai Chi stance for those of you that know Tai Chi. So our feet are about shoulder width apart. We just relax our shoulders, we soften our knees, and then from the waist up, we're trying to be as if we're being drawn skyward. So we're trying to create some good space here in the center body after being in a seated position for so long. So just stand up nice and comfortably here. Take a deep breath. And then just let those hands rise and fall. So this is a real common Tai Chi and Qigong movement. Hands float like they're floating through water. If it helps, go ahead and just even close your eyes and connect this movement with your breath. Exhaling down, inhaling up. Beautiful. You can do this even when you're on Zoom calls and you just need to settle yourself a little bit without anybody even really knowing you're doing it. You can just do a gentle movement like this. And then this time, let those hands float all the way up overhead. In Qigong, we do a lot of connection with nature. So let's just imagine we're reaching up to the sky, take a big stretch, and then come forward, make a fist, put your hands together and push. And then roll forward and just curl forward a little bit. And then release and open the body. Think about creating some softness and openness as you take a big stretch overhead and then coming forward and just press and release. Let's do that one more time. Up overhead, big stretch. And then exhale forward. And then just kind of let those arms hang down, look at the floor, and just kind of roll back and forth a little bit. Release the spine. And then as you gently roll back up, we're going to do one called connecting, coming home to the heart, or Great Bear Swims in the Ocean. So bring the backs of your hands out in front. Take a nice stretch here through the shoulder blades, and then just sort of draw your elbows back as your hands come upward. This is called a lotus position in the front. And then we're just reaching around and behind, big sweep, and then draw the elbows and come in. So just draw some positive energy in towards your heart. Let all of your gifts blossom. Draw it in, some nice deep breaths here. We'll do this a few more times. This is really a great one when we've been seated and kind of in that still seated posture for a long time just to get things stretched out. Let's do one more. Coming home to the heart. And then just bringing the hands up to the front. We're going to do a little bit of what we call dragon. We like to do animal frolics in Qigong. Again, it's just a way to connect with the natural, with our natural world. But we're just tapping our fingers here right now. And then put the palms up, one on either side of you. And we're going to gather in something precious. So to one side, reach out like you're reaching out to grab something precious. With the other shoulder, roll it forward so that that hand is up. And then draw that in. And then just reverse. Reach and draw in. Good. Reach and draw in. Reach. Good. Being careful with the shoulders on any of these movements, adapting anything that you need to adapt. One more time. And come back in. Hands floating down now, just below the shoulders. This is called Wuji Swimming Dragon. So I want you to think about being a playful dragon with your tail just sweeping through the water. One hand sweeps around, comes in, it lands close to your lower energy center, what we call our lower dantian, also known as the belly, right? So just bring it in. And as this hand is coming in, the other hand reaches behind. So as you reach behind you, you actually follow that hand with your gaze. Both hands are moving at the same time. And just think about energetically now, reaching way out beyond the fingertips. Just drawing in what you need most for your day. Letting your body settle. Part of what we talk about in Qigong is finding the stillness within the movement. So perhaps this is one of those places. See if you can find some stillness within the body, even as you're gently moving. One more. The next one I'd like to show you is also a very traditional Tai Chi Qigong movement called cloud hands, or clouds float by. Again, a great time to try to find stillness within the movement. The top hand is, the palm is facing you, and the bottom hand is like the palm facing down, but like a shadow on the ground. So both hands come across together. They stay like connected, even though they're not physically connected. The whole body rotates. Then the palms cross. One rises, one falls, and you just rotate back in the other direction. You'll notice it's the elbow of the top arm that's taking the lead here. Beautiful. Nice. Some of you look like you've done this before. So this again is called hands pass like clouds, or cloud hands. Now, if you look at the palm of the hand, this becomes a beautiful way to do some mindfulness. What have you never noticed before about the palm of your hand? As you turn all your focus to the palm, other distracting thoughts tend to float away, and your focus becomes very narrow and right where you want it to be. Beautiful. One more time. So in our practice, we might normally do a 20-minute, maybe a 45-minute practice. We would do all these things, perhaps a little longer and a lot more of them. But I'd like to just end with one final movement called Sparkle and Shine. So what I'd like you to do is reach out and gather in like a big, gathering in something maybe like a big radiant light even coming in towards you. And then with one hand, just sort of sweep down the leg, come back up the center, bring it around, and then like you're presenting something precious to the world. So we gather in. With one hand, we sort of polish it up. And we right up through the center of the body, and we bring it around and present. So just maybe bring to mind all of your special gifts, things that you bring to your family, to your business, to your world. Polish them up a little bit and let them shine. Nice. Let's do it just a couple more times. Right up the center. And send it out there. Once more on each side.
Thank you.
Yeah, both hands just coming into the heart now. Bring your feet in a little narrower. And we'll just close with a nice deep breath. Just maybe giving a little gratitude for our ability to gather today, even though we're all staying safe in our own space. Gratitude for our bodies, for the resilience of our bodies, even without us even having to do much of anything. And just some gratitude for our breath. With that, arms up and over, all the way up overhead. And we'll just end in a little bow.
Sandy, can I say one thing?
Yes.
I think just it's on the slide, but I love what you just did. It's a moment to remind us to pause. I think your actions are saying that, and so from a physical standpoint, there's a way to pause and collect yourself. And I'm talking about the mind and collecting yourself. And in the end, what we're really talking about is self-care. And on the slide, I think we had that definition of what self-care really is. But one I heard that I really want to share with you when I was being trained was self-care really is a commitment to your boundaries. And I think in this, when you're a business owner and multiple roles and hats, like I was saying, pulling these bubbles in, one of the things that often happens is we bleed and we let our boundaries go to make sure other people are well taken care of. And yet at some point, and you can speak to this yourself maybe at some point if people ask questions, but that sense of self-care really is important, and having a boundary to keep that in your life is extremely important.
I see one question about why is Qigong so calming? I hope you found it that way. It's intended to be that way. I think it's because it's like yoga, right? It's like Tai Chi. It's any practice that helps us really connect, because there is that direct connection between what's going on up here in our crazy minds, and then taking that and being able to connect it to the body and letting the physiology of the body actually help to relax us. I mean, if you think about your breath, what is a more powerful way to relax than just taking a couple deep breaths, right? So any practice like a Qigong or a yoga or a Tai Chi, anything like that, or a meditation practice, it invites us to get in touch with that relaxing response that comes with just taking a very deep breath. There's so much more I could say about that, Kathleen, but for me, a lot of it does come down to that connection with the breath and the body. And a lot of what we will do in these practices, whether it's a meditation or it's a moving part of the Qigong, is to really connect in with what sensations are you feeling. So I would invite you, as a person who's probably spending a lot of time on Zoom now, right? We all are, is to, while you're in the middle of whatever it is you're doing, whether it's on Zoom or even in person, is to start recognizing what are those parts of your body, what are those signals from your body that are telling you, uh-oh, this thing hit a little trigger for me, or I'm getting a little worked up over this, or wow, I'm not really that sensitive, or I'm kind of like way out there. And sometimes it's our bodies sending us a specific signal. And if we can learn to tune into that, then we can learn to get past it, take those deep breaths, center ourselves again, and get past it.